Yeah. As I got another rhyme, another rhythm for y'all to listen. I'm never quitting on my mission. I'm on roll with what I'm giving. Got some ambition, this new edition, filling positions. Looking at the void in myself and feeling what's missing. Better watch the way you going, better go in the right direction. In the moment you stressing, but you gon' be counting blessings. And I know that for certain. Keep on working, open curtains, haters swerving, cause they ain't ready for your final version. Whoa. I'm never gonna give up, fall down, I just gotta get up, yeah.
You're listening to the Tom Ficklin Show on WNHH-LP 103.5 FM, your home for community radio.
Johnny Eric Williams, present and accounted for.
Yeah.
You got El Haj Malik El Shabazz in the background, and as people might know, this Sunday was his 99th birthday. Some people know him as more as Malcolm X, and some people forgotten that it was Detroit Red before that.
Yeah.
Malcolm Little before that. So these names change, but sometimes the game remains. So let's say that we're still in the game, and we're talking today with Johnny Eric Williams, the chair of the Trinity Sociology Department, Trinity College here in Connecticut and in the Hartford area, about this game that this world game that continues to be being played, Johnny.
Mm-hmm.
Whether we're pawns or kings or queens or tokens, or whether we even are on the board, I guess is still a metaphorical, perhaps historical question. But let's jump right in. Also, you got your red, black, and green flag behind you, and just to remind people that the liberation is something very important, and that flags have really represented a lot of our identities. I have on the shirt that you might have seen that most of my heroes have FBI files. I'm not sure if you've ever seen this shirt, Johnny.
No, I have not.
As most of my friends are FBI files, and so there's pictures of Assata. You have Assata on your Facebook page, I believe.
Yes, I do.
And so you have Marcus Garvey and Jesse and Malcolm and King and Evers, and just pictures of folks, our heroes and sheroes, that for whatever reasons the FBI has had an interest in and or killed. So let's jump in, and this is not a soliloquy. I'm going to give you a chance to kind of do your thing. And I titled this show kind of global destiny.
Okay.
We're participating in a global, and some would say intergalactic moment, with people trying to go to find missiles to go to the moon and elsewhere. So let's jump in. What's on your heart, mind, and soul this afternoon that we can share with folks for 55 minutes?
All right. Sticking with your theme of global destiny, and I mean, basically, I see from what I see, all the signs, all the indices indicate that the Europe and the United States, and the so-called G7 are on a decline. And that the world no longer wish to abide by the particular brand of order, right? That is, their brand of order is that they call it the rule of law, but the law doesn't apply to them, right? It applies to everybody else, as we saw yesterday with the International Criminal Court issuing, well, it hasn't issued, but saying that it will issue arrest warrants for the Prime Minister of Israel, as well as Yoav Gallant, the general in charge of the invasion of an assault on Gaza. I mean, because it is an occupation, and so what is happening in Gaza is basically a violation of international law writ large, and that these people should be brought to justice. But at the same time, he watered it down and played political. I think it's the prosecutor's name is Khan, and he played political games, trying to say that Hamas, which is the resistance to Israel, the Israeli government in the occupation, that they somehow violated, they committed crimes against humanity, when in actuality they're actually fighting against an occupier, an illegal occupier of their lands, and they're resisting by all means necessary, as Malcolm X said once, right? And by that he means, you can't just discount any other options. I mean, they tried to do it peacefully through the boycott, divestment, sanction movement, but the Israelis, as well as the Americans and Europeans, have now um, said that BDS is itself anti-Semitic. With South Africa, the boycott movement was something that was modeled after the South African apartheid
Mm-hmm.
kind of divestment, and but the United States and its European allies seeks to basically criminalize boycotting a genocidal Zionist regime, which is problematic, right? So just because they are allies doesn't mean that they are, excuse me, that they are not uh, engaged in an illegal occupation and genocidal behavior that has been going on now for 76 years. It's only now hitting the fan. And the United States is trying to prop them up primarily, as well as the UK. Today, also, the French have come out and said, and the Germans, in a lukewarm kind of way, that they support the ICC and what they're doing. And so I think that all bodes somewhat well that the United States and Europe are on the decline,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a rise of a multipolar state when it comes to ruling, running the world in the interest of the people. So with China and Russia, India, and others, instead of just like a unilateral world where the United States is basically dictating to the world uh, what it should do. And if they don't do it, then we go and bomb the hell out of them, kill them, and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
And all the while making profit from selling these bombs and bombing people in other countries. These people are primarily black and brown people. That's who they're killing. Uh, and it continues to this day. It started basically in 1492, and it continues to this day.
So let's talk, Johnny, for the next 40 minutes or so. Um, in terms of how I won't say in terms of MLK, where do we go from here? But we can use that expression, and even just in terms of our communing with one another, even if no one else was listening to this, our what I'll call our content communion. I'm definitely going to share our conversation widely with folks. But I think in terms of prophecy and prophetic voices and good and evil and light and dark, history is sometimes just is only reflected that dynamic and that tension. So before Columbus even made his journey and before he was even funded by Queen Isabella, we have historical records of wars and rumors of wars. So I'm kind of caught up mentally myself at the moment of, are we just in this locked into this paradigm that the human species is a warfaring species, or is there some hope at the light at the end of the tunnel from your perspective?
Well, first of all, I in no way believe that humanity's disposition is warlike and non-cooperative. We are a sedentary species, and we depend upon cooperation for the survival of us all. But there is a system that was put into place that rose to the fore, uh, called capitalism, and in capitalism there can be no capitalism without the differentiation of human beings. That is, in order to exploit them, that is to say that they are the other, right? And so capitalism created this thing called race. Well, simultaneously, it didn't create it;
Mm-hmm.
it actually came into existence simultaneously with it. And just because I am in no means saying that when you get rid of capitalism, you get rid of racism. No, that's not the case at all. Racism continues to thrive independent of capitalism itself. What I'm trying to argue is that capitalism is the thing that the way in which we organize the world, especially from the European perspective, and that the Europeans were the ones who started this process of colonization that the world has never seen before,
Mm-hmm.
and basically destroying other people in their cultures and their lands. And this is and Zionism is a continuation of that, but only in the Middle East on Arab lands, and what it seeks to do. And it seeks to justify that by saying that it somehow is that is the people who are the head of it and moving it are, are superior to the other human beings that are found in those lands which they occupy or they
Mm-hmm.
colonize, right? And so this is a way of organizing the world. And so if we get rid of, and this is something that Malcolm X, Marcus Garvey, Ida B. Wells, Sojourner Truth, Frederick Douglass, all of us was thinking along these lines, being African in America. And there were many others who were in diaspora. And some of my favorites are people like Emil Cabral on the African continent, but also Walter Rodney and so
Mhm.
forth, right? So these folks understood that the only way to get people not to behave in this kind of heinous way of killing one another for material gain is to reorganize our world in a different way, make another world possible,
Mhm.
right? And and so and this possibility is something that we've been working for generations, at least, and the Africans in diaspora have been working for generations to do so, for centuries, to bring another world that is more, as Martin Luther King called it, the beloved community, right?
Indeed.
So that's what we see, right? But those who are in charge, who are in charge of these oppressive organizations and institutions in the West, primarily North America and in Europe, as well as in the Far East, Japan, uh, these folks are not wanting to relinquish power. They want to create personalities that will reinforce that ability to exploit other people and take their stuff by killing them and occupying their lands and so forth. So we've organized our way of existence to this way. So our educational system is designed to reinforce that kind of a disposition. Our
Mhm.
religious systems are designed to reinforce that kind of a disposition. If you don't believe me about the education and religious, all you got to do is just look at what's happening right now to the students who are peacefully protesting but getting beat up by the police because their presidents are calling the police on them just to get off the greens, in which they pay fees for to be on, right? They
Mhm.
pay to go there, right? So if you don't believe me about religion, all you got to do is look at what the Pope has done, in the past and what religion has done, but also even now with Christian nationalists, right? And what they're doing. So it's pretty bad uh, when it comes to this. This is the way we organize our lives. So the education institutions, even our familial institutions, right, political institutions, economic institutions, are all designed to facilitate this kind of. And I use the term that some of our viewers may understand. It's called necropolitics by Achilles Mbembe, right? Who's a Ghanaian, but he works at Witwatersrand University in South Africa in Johannesburg. He's a philosopher. But so this necro mentality that the West has, that is insatiable because they're always trying to take more and more. There seems to be no limit to what they will do in order to get it, which is so problematic. And we in the United States, especially uh, people of African American descent as well as indigenous folk, we understand so well, right? And as well as the folks in the
Mhm.
Caribbean, because they were also enslaved in South America, right? We understand so well that this is what is occurring. And this is why we're not supporting the genocide and why we're asking for a new form of government, a new society, right? That doesn't engage in this kind of necro action that we're seeing going on today.
And Johnny, I totally concur with your analysis. Just when we started, it just reminded me when you talked about you didn't use this phrase exactly, but the rise and fall of civilizations, that Amy Chua at Yale in the law school has 4 or 5 years ago did a number of she has a book out and several lectures on the rise and fall of civilizations, looking historically about why Roman Empire, Ottoman Empire, Chinese dynasties, etc., why empires have risen and fallen. And certainly, it seems to me, as you have indicated, that's a fair accusation that is America, Europe, the Western world in a state of decline, or are they fighting? And is this Gaza situation a sign of the last gasp? So yeah, I do concur that for better or for worse, we are in a very much of a historical moment. What do you suggest to folks to kind of move ahead? Because when you mention the 76 years or so, I always mention to people that one of my heroes is Ralph Bunche, who tried to resolve the situation in 1948, and or at least help it. And then I think of Andy. We forget that Andy Young, former ambassador to the UN, kind of had to resign because of his reaching out to Arafat.
Mhm.
And not to mention, former President Jimmy Carter's books on the apartheid in that area. What are you suggesting moving forward to young people that might be listening in, to the students that have protested? Because I've heard their primal scream like crazy. And so I'm just curious, because you interact with students, et cetera, et cetera. What do you want to say to them? What do you want to encourage them? What kind of tactics or strategies do you think they can use to kind of make their world, a better place? Because you and I might not be around after 20 or 30 more years, but
Well,
hopefully there'll be other civilizations.
well, we're hoping the planet. Well, no, the planet will be here. The species probably won't be the human species, because we seem to have this kind of mentality of this death wish. But I think the first thing I want to address is this use of the term civilization.
Mhm.
No, I didn't use that term. You did, right?
Well, sure.
Yeah, for civilization, the way it is that the Europeans and the Americans and North Americans defined it is that they're civilized and everybody else is uncivilized
Hmm.
because they're connected in unison with their ecosystem, and that is the world and in the sun, which gives us life, right? And so they want to control that for their own personal gain. That's what they call civilized. Civilized is destroying people,
Hmm.
So I really don't use that term civilization. I mean,
Okay.
you did utter the term empire, right? And the United States is basically an empire, right? It projects power all over the world at a moment's notice. I mean, literally seconds, it can project the power, right? And destroy something and destroy people who oppose it and so forth. In the United States, like all kinds of empire, it cannot last forever, even though it seeks to make you think that that it is permanent and that it will never go away.
Hmm.
This country was created by a bunch of loyalists to the British king, right? And they rebelled against the king because the king wanted to tax them more and take some more money because he owned the land according to divine right. They didn't. They were just, you know, residing over the land for him while he wasn't there. And it was illegally occupied land because he took it from the indigenous who were in North America and South America, Central America, and the Caribbean, right?
That's right.
So the thing is that these guys got mad and said that the king was immoral, right? When they all are immoral, and they say that they're going to go against him, give me liberty or death, as Patrick Henry said, right? And what he's saying was, I want the money that I have ill-gottly gained from occupying land, right, and killing the folks on the land to take their resources, is that is my right, and that's what I will do. And they created a government to protect that right to do that. It's
That's
called the
right.
United States government and the Constitution. That's what it does. The Constitution of the United States facilitates commerce. Now, so I'm giving you that. I'm trying to get you an overview, Tom, and your viewers an overview that 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 the that the country is organized in a way to be a gigantic oppressive necro machine.
Hmm.
That's what the country is organized to do, right? And it's not organized by the people. It is owned. I mean, throughout our history, the people who have taken the land and said they own the land, right, say that they have a right to govern because they own the land. They have a vested interest in the country because they want to own the land. Well, they think they can own the world too. That they have a vested interest in owning the world because they've ill-gottly taken and killed for this land and the materials that are underneath the land. Say, for instance, before the genocide, which is ongoing in Palestine, has been going on for 76 years, as I said, was taking place. There's been an ongoing genocide. Tens of millions of people have died in the Congo,
Hmm.
which is still going on right now. To get the cobalt that is necessary, the coltan necessary to power our electronics, right? I mean, to stop the batteries from overheating and so forth. Little kids
Hmm.
are dying and stuff like that. So this is a systematic effort. The United States has created something called the Africa Command in order to exploit African resources. When before they were never interested in Africa, they were interested in the Monroe Doctrine, which told the Europeans this is our sphere of influence. That is, the United States said anything south of its borders is their sphere of influence, right? In this Western Hemisphere, and and the Europeans shouldn't interfere with that, right? So they stayed out. They didn't care about Africa, right? Now they're in Africa because a lot of them But Africa is minerally rich. Its
Mm-hmm.
people are very rich. All right. So
Mm-hmm.
that's one. Now, I know this is a long way to get to the answer about what can you tell young people, right? First of all, I don't want to tell them anything. I think they got to find their own way,
Mm-hmm.
right? Right. But they need to know the history. The
Mm-hmm.
first the first step of a revolution, right, that leads to transformation of the world as it is occurs here
Mm.
in your mind, right? Remember these commercials, Tom? We were adults at the time, but then it was for the NAACP educational fund. It says a mind is, it was a United Negro Fund. I'm sorry,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
United Negro Fund. A mind is a terrible thing to waste, right?
Yes.
Well, I'm just telling you, that's what's going on right now. That's why we're preoccupied with these gadgets, like on social media and stuff like that, because people are not reading. They're getting that information fed to them by the powerful people I just talked to you about. They
Mm-hmm.
own media, these billionaires and almost trillionaires. I mean, the first trillionaire would probably be an American because we're so exploitative of other people around the world, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, and so we're being misinformed and we have disinformation and we're not getting the truth about what's going on. But these younger generation of people who are taking to TikTok and Instagram, which is Instagram is trying to control them, owned by Google, I believe, right? And it's not to mention Twitter, which is now X. They're trying to control the narrative too with Elon Musk, right? And Facebook and so forth. It's that these people are taking to TikTok to give you the truth. They're educating themselves and talking to other people about what's going on in the world, especially in this instance of what's happening with Israel in its genocidal assault in Palestine,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so the response of the billionaire class to them is, because that's the tactic that they use, the young people, is to try to ban TikTok in the United States, right? So that's what the TikTok thing is coming from. And young people are trying to be, innovative and try to educate one another because, as I said, the revolution occurs here first, right?
Mm-hmm.
In the mind, right? As Steve Biko says, the most potent weapon of the oppressor is the mind of the oppressed.
Mm.
So you need to you need to make that revolution here. Stop listening to what they're telling you, because don't look at what they're telling you. Look at their actions. They say
Mm-hmm.
one thing to do the next. For instance, young people understood very well at Morehouse, right, this weekend, that Biden enables genocide, and he should be brought up on war crimes, right? And they tried to stop him from speaking there, and many of the alumni tried to stop him from speaking there, but he came in and he spoke, right? And the dude, he's an enabler of genocide, and they called him out for it, right? And they were still trying to call him out for it, even during the graduation ceremony. Matter of fact, he even clapped for the valedictorian who said that there should be an unequivocal permanent ceasefire, end of the siege in Gaza and Palestine, right? And he was clapping for it. I don't know where is this dude? It appears to be dementia to me, but I'm just saying something is going on there. Is he that far gone? Does he really believe that the Israelis are not using all the weaponry that we're sending them, the government of the United States is sending them, to commit genocide against the people who occupy the land? This is the very thing that we did, right? So young people need to understand that. And they're responding in kind, and they created their encampments, which are basically, and this is the thing, just to tell you, these movements are not disconnected from one another.
Mm-hmm.
The young people are learning from the Occupy movement, the movement for Black Lives. They're learning from, right, about how to do things and how to project things in the way in which they want to go, right? And they're doing it very fabulously. That's the response of these college presidents and the university presidents to these students in this very hostile way, right? And they're going to continue to try to clamp down. Even they're clamping down also on professors, right? People like me, right? Because we're trying to protect our students. We want to educate them. The idea is to be critical of the world in order to transform it and make it better for everyone, not to sit back and just pontificate about it as if we can't do anything about it, right? This is the problem, right? But young people have figured it out, I think, and they're on the right road. And I think they can continue to chip away at this gigantic mammoth called, racial capitalism or white supremacy, racial capitalism, whatever you want to call it. Those oppressions are there, and they're chipping away at them. They may not see the change, and I know we may not see the change, but they a planning a road ahead to the future without this stuff, and they're doing it their way, and they should continue to do so.
Mm, mm. And by the way, I accept your addendum about, I'll use a phrase, uncivilized civilizations. I was not making a judgment about the quality of the civilization, but just I'll substitute even empire. And Amy Chua's books, as she looks retrospectively at various empires, does talk about that the empires that have fallen because they have not used the phrase, and I use the phrase that she uses, integrated talent from throughout their territory, that they've been discriminatory. And so she even talks about that the fall of previous empires have been because of them not being too xenophobic, if you will, about their original.
Well, I think I haven't read the book, but I'm going off of what you're telling me, so this is my critique. I think that's a fallacious thesis. The United States has thoroughly integrated these complicit Black folks and Latinos and Asians into it, and indigenous folk into it, and from its colonies around the world as well. And yet there are people who recognize, as Malcolm X said way back when, you got to understand who's propping these so-called leaders up, right? Who's giving them the microphone, or who's giving them a platform to speak to the people as if they are a leader of our communities around the world? And it's not us, right? These are not the leaders that come from us organically. An example of such shenanigans is this this woman AOC, right? Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, right? Walks around pretending like she is all about helping the people and doing things that are right. Jamal Baldwin is another one, right? These are Democrats. These are liberals who I take again from Malcolm X. People you should be very weary of because they believe that the system works. It only needs to be tweaked by including them at the table of oppression and necroness, right? And that's what they're doing, right? So young people have recognized that. I know I've recognized it throughout my life on this planet, my short time here, is that you can't really trust what these people are saying, these politicians especially. You must look at what they do in order to gauge exactly what sincerely is in their heart. And really, they are not for the people. I mean, the inflation rate, we're being gouged to death by corporations right now with packaging their minimum, with these small packagings and so forth. And yet they're giving us increased prices for what we're getting. And that is, we're getting less, but we're paying way more for it. I mean, this is going on constantly, right? And inflation is being driven by these corporations that are price gouging and so forth, United States, and not nary a politician is saying anything about that. But the American people know, and they are very upset about it, and they're barely making ends meet. They're basically subsisting in a system like the United States, the capitalist system. That's what it wants, subsistence, so it can get continually to exploit people because they lack what they need, right? And the same thing goes for education, right? Education, most Americans are being priced out of education. And this is by design, right? And it already had started way back in the 1970s, as I said on your show before, with the Powell memo, saying that they have to take control of universities, make them accountable to the rich. And that's what they have done, right? When you have reports coming out of New York about these billionaires urging the mayor of New York, Eric Adams, to send in the troops, not the troops, but the police into NYPD into Columbia to bust some heads to break up the encampment. That was at the urging of these billionaires to Eric Adams, right? And Eric Adams is no friend of the everyday people. I mean, he is an enemy of the people, and folks in New York should know that by now. but I'm just saying this is the way it is being played out, and we need to first educate ourselves about what's happening, so then we can be better informed as how to transform it, to dismantle it, eradicate it, and transform it, so it can be a better place. It could be our beloved community.
Indeed, indeed. And by the way, I'll accept that when I use the term integrate, I'll accept the nuance there. And it seems to me that, and Johnny, I want you to talk about this a little bit as well, that because you reference, and correct me if I'm wrong, by innuendo, the class system and the thing of India and having people in India that have the middle class being the buffer zone between
Yeah.
if you want to talk about that a little bit, because that certainly is a dynamic, and I can certainly be accused of being in that gatekeeper role as well, for much of my life. So I'm sympathetic, to that
Yeah.
conjecture, as well. So talk about the gatekeepers and middle class folks, and how economy and greed can kind of dampen your liberation spirit.
Well, I mean, first of all, the United States really, there is no middle class. There's people who have and people who don't have. There's workers and people who aren't workers. They're exploiting the workers. That's the United States. I mean, I'm making it very simple, right? But we have, but during this heyday in say the mid 1950s and 60s, some of the 70s, right, in the 80s, we did have somewhat of a middle class, but that middle class started to shrink in the 1980s when Ronald Reagan came to power and basically decided to make capital mobile.
Mm-hmm.
Not the workers. The workers can't go anywhere in the world to find a decent job, but the people who own a corporation can go and find workers who they can pay low wages to around the world. So they go to
Mm-hmm.
places like the Dominican Republic, uh, Panama. Then they went to Vietnam. You know, Nike went to Vietnam, produced all
Mm-hmm.
of his sneakers and so forth. And this is what people have done in order to increase their profits for the
Yes.
very few, right? So in the United States, what we seek to do, that is the people who are resisting this kind of exploitative arrangement, is to transform that. There should be, Tom, uh, no such thing as a millionaire or a billionaire or even a trillionaire. That's a heinous thing
Mm.
because they're getting their money by killing and taking it from other people,
Mm.
right? As I said, it is ill-gotten money. The United States should outlaw that, right? But again, the United States won't do that because it's foundational to the country's mission to be this kind of commerce seeking nation that exploits people for the profit of a few, right? So I don't have any hope in it. So the only thing we can have hope in then is the people,
Mm.
right? And this is where you get the 1960 phrase, power to the people, right? Is that the people know that this is killing them. Uh, it may some of us die quicker, but most of us are dying very slowly. But we die prematurely, and
Mm-hmm.
capitalism does that to people, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we want to live a long, prosperous, good life, a loving life. How to do that? First, you gotta have a radical restructuring of values. This is MLK. I mean, I'm not citing anybody totally off the line. A radical restructuring of values and the way we think about how we're living. We also have to have a radical restructuring of our institutions,
Mm.
right? There is no reason, and I don't know if I lost the question or not in my head because I'm going on a diatribe here, but there is no reason why there should be anyone who is houseless in the United States.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Everyone should have a house.
Mm-hmm.
The reason we come with houses because it's artificially created scarcity by people saying, I want this amount of money to live in this space. No, get rid of that, right? There should be uh, a minimum level of income and wealth that one can hold.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not the first to say it. I'm not the first to do it. FDR did it back in the 1930s during the Great Depression. He said, look, if you make $250,000, anybody who makes over $250,000, that $1 over, when you go over that, all that money goes back to the state to go back and to help the government, help the
Mm-hmm.
people, right? This this is, I guess you can call it Keynesianism if you want to call it that. But this has been done. And then successfully, though, other presidents started to say, no, we can't do that. And they started reducing that,
Mm-hmm.
took it away. Then they put a minimum tax that people have to pay, which no rich person is paying right now because they, hide their money overseas or they exploit loopholes in the tax code, all this other kind of stuff, right? But everyday people can't do that. The people who are paying taxes are primarily working people And and here we go, middle class people, right?
Mhm.
If there is any, as I said, right? Because there really isn't. I mean, you can say I'm middle class. I'm a professor at a highly selective institution, and that is selective for cash, not for intellect. I just want you to understand the difference, right? Is that when it's costing $80,000 to go there, I mean, who can afford that? The
Mhm.
average American is not going to go to an institution like mine's, right? They're going to be going to a 2-year college or vocational school if they can even do that. Now that's even difficult, right? So where is the middle class? It's basically non-existence, as I said,
Mm,
right?
mm,
And the middle class that is there seeks to emulate uh, the millionaires and the billionaires, and they don't identify with the everyday people who are trying to come up and subsist and to just survive on a daily basis, right? It becomes insidious, right? The system is in their head. They have internalized the values and the belief systems of the very wealthy few, you know, the very wealthy, right? And so, how to overcome that is the key. As I said, radical restructuring of values, radical restructuring of institutions in our society is necessary, right? This is the only way forward. And I mean, if you don't believe me, look, I mean, why do people think that Black folks in the United States are heavily surveilled, right? We are police. Our communities are heavily policed. It ain't
mhm,
because the police are protecting and serving us, right? That's not their goal. Their job is to protect and serve the wealthy few. But if the kids of the wealthy few start going off, they're gonna bust their heads too because they're protecting the system that guarantees the position and status of the wealthy few, right? Police are in our communities to keep us from basically resisting, right? It seeks out the leaders who are helping the people educate themselves to what's going on and how to destroy what is happening to us, right? And stop it from happening. And they put them in jail or they kill them. We started off the show talking about that, right?
mhm, mhm,
So, so then you get what you have left is the politicians who are not servants of the people, right? Or the middle class who are servants of the people. You have they're servants of themselves. Barack Obama, he goes in the office, he ain't got that much money, but now he's damn near a billionaire. Where did he get the money from? I mean, these are questions that we should be asking ourselves. And the dude never says anything that will help everyday people, overcome the problems that we face on a daily basis, right? He's trying to maintain this system of exploitation and death-inducing processes, right? I mean, so that's what it is. Middle class, I mean, that's just something that they made up to try to say that there's a buffer class there.
mhm,
But really, we all just trying to survive,
mm,
paycheck to paycheck, really, including professors. I
mhm,
mean, just because we got PhDs don't mean we live in large. Now, maybe at highly selective institutions, we are a little bit above subsistence and we don't live paycheck to paycheck. We have a mochium of savings and stuff. But Tom, believe me, most of us don't,
mm,
right? We're workers and we will be treated as such by the administrators who get the bulk of the money. They're making over 300,000 G's for senior level positions, right? While faculty members are making about $60,000 to $62,000 a year, right? Well, that's crazy. And these administrators don't teach, right? They don't make institutions go, but they're getting all this money. Why? Because these institutions are contested terrain for the mind, control of the mind.
mm,
People like me are rare in the Academy of Higher Education in the United States and around the world because most of us, as we saw, say, at the graduation of Morehouse this weekend, most of the faculty went along and got along. This is typically how we operate. We are mostly the narrators of the powerful, not of the people.
mm.
And so we should be suspect of scholars, intellectuals, until proven otherwise, right? And I know I'm very, skeptical of my colleagues, right? And I'm very critical of them as well, as you know, right? So, I mean, so I don't want to be a part of this system of killing, mass killing, genocidal behavior for profit. I just don't want to see that. I don't want to be a part of that.
If a young person knocked on your door or called you, but by the way, have you had your graduation already? Was it this past
Yeah,
weekend?
they already had it. I couldn't go.
Uh, uh, but uh, but if a student kind of either, I mean, and you're still in touch with students, even not necessarily in the fall only, but
Yeah, I'm
during
in
the
touch
summer.
with them even over the summer. Yes.
So if they reach out, if someone reached out to you and said, Professor Johnny and Professor Williams, I want to vote in November, but I'm torn in the presidential election. What would you say to them?
Uh, uh, Tom, I already, I addressed this question with my students profoundly. I let them know that the classroom is not an objective place. It is a place from which I offer an alternative point of view to what they've been told throughout their lives, right? So I make it a point of telling my students I do go vote because there are people in the United States who have died for my right to do so, right? And so I go vote, but I vote in a way that does not support either party. I write in my vote, and it is to make a mockery, to give my uncommitted support to anyone. Right? I'm not going to commit to any politician except for to the people in this system, the politician in this system, right? Because these politicians are being, churned out by this system and put up as if they're the choice when there's really no choice. They're both foxes and wolves, as Malcolm X said, right? So I I go and vote. I write it in, and you're not gonna like what I write in though. I write in, like there's a hip hop song called "These Nuts." I mean, but it has "These Nuts" in the end. I think it's uh, uh, Ice Cube, and I go "These nuts in ovaries" with a Z, not an S. These with a Z and nuts with a Z and ovaries with a Z too. At the end, and that's who I vote for because I know that we're offered an illusion of choice when actually we're actually getting what my colleague Glenn Ford, my deceased colleague Glenn Ford, used to say. It's not about uh, the lesser of two evils. It's about evil and more effective evil, right? And Biden, as we see, is more effective evil, just as Barack Obama was. And that's what I would tell the student. And that the only recourse that a student has is to be extra institutional, and
Hmm.
that is to create disruption. This is our power. Uh, to not go along with the way things are set up as if you can get change. I give an example that I give to students, and I give to the public as well. Have you noticed that whenever anything goes wrong within an institution, that they all say they want to form a committee, right? And the people who are the aggrieved, who are challenging the system to change in some way, are often asked by those who are over the institution to sit on the committee. I tell my students to not sit on the committee. The committee is controlled by the institutions and their leaders. They know the rules and they trying to cool you out. What you got to do is to go out and do what you do best, not go along and get along, but to challenge. As my mother would say, rock the boat,
Hmm.
right? Because the boat needs to be rocked in order to create the change that will create a better world. And that's what I would tell students.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Mm-hmm.
do tell students.
Mm-hmm. If we have about 10 minutes, Johnny. So however your mind, body, and spirit is telling you to kind of share and talk about what comes to mind for me, and it's really been very helpful to hear you speak again. Let's my hesitance is because I don't think we've talked about this that much in the past, but I want to you reference religious institutions. Let's talk. Spend a moment if you're comfortable in this word, an archetype of spirituality, myth, magic, voodoo,
Mhm.
uh, mysticism, LSD, super consciousness, quantum theory. Where are your thoughts these days in terms of and we mentioned the power of the mind. Is there a third or fourth rail that we haven't maximized in terms of our energetic spirituality?
Yeah, look, I mean, human beings are spiritual people, except for some of us are socialized out of it, right, through systems of practices which do not desire that we be connected with one another. I alluded to earlier how social media working before social media TV, uh, on and on, how they work not to bring people together, but to create divisions,
Mm-hmm.
to create individuals, because that's what the country and the West need is individuals. They don't want you to think that you're connected in this web of life together with other people and other creatures, right? And we are,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so they want to disconnect us through this value called individualism. You get yours and forget everybody else, right? Uh, we need to throw that. We need to discard that and embrace collectivity, right? You need to embrace the group, right? Human beings are nothing without other human beings or without the group. We would not be able to survive as an individual the moment that we were born. We have to stay with our unit, our group, they call the family,
Mm-hmm.
right? Until a certain age, right? And some of that's arbitrary, right? Because around the turn of the 20th century, the last century, we didn't have child labor laws. I mean, children start working at 5 years old and so forth. But now you can't do that because now we say you can't have kids work early, right? And so, sorry, let me turn this off, Tom. All right. So you can't have kids work at an early age. But now some states are trying to even change that. Like my home state of Arkansas, trying to say that a 13-year-old can work in a factory now, something like that, right?
Mm.
So you don't have to be 16 to work, you can be younger than that, right? Which is insane to me, right? Given how far we had advanced and now how far we're receding back, right? So now what was I saying again, Tom? For the phone
Well,
rang over here.
no sweat. I want to kind of conclude that we the uh, the narrative description of reality in terms of our institutions and our organizations, we kind of have pretty much of a feel that there's brick and mortar things, uh, that there's organizations that we
The
have these
collective.
institutions,
That's what we were talking about, right?
but the power,
Yeah.
but where's this list the power of I don't want to say uh spirituality, the mental force, psychic kind of stuff. I'm just wondering whether we haven't maximized our innate ability to communicate through our spirituality, through our through
Well,
our through
well,
through our
I believe.
our sacred arts of and I use the term, people say voodoo, et cetera, but or or orishas, but is there something there that we still can kind of maximize as part of our ammunition, our spiritual ammunition?
Well, our connectedness is a spiritual thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, One of the most important things that one can do is ensure that another life thrives,
Mm.
right? In our short time here on this earth, if not our life, then somebody else's life
Mm-hmm.
should be able to thrive, and it shouldn't end prematurely, right? That is a spiritual thing,
Mm.
right? There's we don't have to assume that it doesn't have to be a religious organization or institution to be spiritual, right? One can engage in this spirituality through, this is what I was alluded to growing up, some Mother's Baptist, is a calling,
Mm-hmm.
right? And the calling doesn't have to be a religious calling through an institution. It could be the calling that I had to be a professor,
Mm.
right? Of the calling that you had to be on the city council. I think that's what you were, right? City
Mm-hmm.
council, on and on and on. I mean, there are callings that are spiritual and that people engage in because they're trying to connect with other human beings in a society that prefers that not happen,
Mm.
right? And yes, it's important, right? And there's a way to get that kind of spirituality. I grew up around that. I mean, I did the religious institutional kind of thing. I mean, most people when they get in conversations with me, especially if they're religious, and they start talking about the Old Testament and New Testament or the Torah, right? This kind of stuff, they think I don't know. I am a sociologist of religion, right? I critique religious institutions. I don't critique people's spirituality. That's something I can't measure,
Mm-hmm.
right? You know, I can only see the visible outcomes of that through their practice of their religious doctrine. That's called religiosity, right? And and there are people who do that. Malcolm X did that through Islam,
Mm-hmm.
right? Martin Luther King did that through Christianity, his Baptist heritage, right? Right. Ida B. Wells did that, right? Through her tradition, but in another kind of way. She's a thinking
Mm-hmm.
woman.
Mm-hmm.
Sojourner Truth, Harriet, to all these people were doing these kinds of things. Uh, I knew Rosa Parks, who was around the corner from me
Mm.
growing up. I didn't know who she was, right? Till everybody started educating me about her and stuff like that. My mom and stuff. I mean, she was a Methodist, but she wasn't a practicing Methodist in that way of being spiritual. She was about connecting people, making the world a better place. She was
Mm-hmm.
trying to make her spirituality work and connect with other human beings. So yes, there's a place for that, Tom. There's always a place for that communion, right, with other human beings to be connected because we're all interconnected. No one is separate. In this weave of life, we call it, right? This web of life, right? It's very, very important for our survival. It's the only way we do this. We are a group-oriented, cooperative people. We can't be without others, and we need each other, despite what our systems are telling us that we can survive without them. Because you can see right now when people are disconnected, as this pandemic has shown us, and people keep talking about the pandemic is over. The pandemic is still raging. People are still dying, but they're just not talking about it, right?
Mm.
During this pandemic, young people have lost the ability to commune with other people in person.
Mm.
And they have to regain that now
Mm.
by
Mm.
going back. They got to recapture that in about 2, 3 more years. They may regain it, but right now they've lost it.
Mm.
Right. And I see it. It's evident in my kids' case, but also in institutions, right? And there's skyrocketing mental illness because of that disconnect
That's
with
right.
communing with other people.
That's right. Johnny, we have
See.
about three more minutes, and certainly let me say again, I have you back on hopefully this summer, this fall. Just continue on that note, if you will, from a pedagogy standpoint, the not burden, but the challenge perhaps of when you re-enter the classroom on in September and your other teachers, et cetera, et cetera. Uh, what kind of teaching challenges might there be as they speak and commune with their students about students being able to more work in group and harmony and cooperation and learn to kind of interact? Is that a challenge of pedagogy as well? Are there new teaching methods that you might have to employ in September to kind of help the students renew their belief in
Well, I've always done that in my
okay.
classroom. It's been difficult getting students to talk. It's also difficult getting students to read.
Mm,
Um,
mm,
and the reason I come is difficult to do that is because uh, a lot of the students are just visual and they don't want to read. They want to be told how to think and not, you know, and not think for themselves,
mm,
which becomes problematic. And in college, uh, what the role of the professor, from my perspective, is to show the students how they can think critically, right,
mm,
about the world, right, to equip them with the tools to do so, not to tell them what to think. I mean,
mm,
that's not my job,
mm-hmm.
right? Just as I remind you, you asked me what could I tell students what strategies they get to deploy. As you can see, I was like evasive, and I was saying that's not my job to tell them that. They will
Okay.
figure it out, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this is the way I look at this moment too, is
Good.
that I'm providing students with these skills that they may not understand at the moment that they achieve, acquiring them, but once they leave me and graduate from the institution, they start to employ them, they will eventually send me an email, call me or something, let me know that now they understood what I was trying to get at if they were
Excellent.
listening in class. So I get that
Excellent.
constantly.
Excellent. And I'm sure people are going to listen to this content communion as well, Johnny. Just thank you. Thank you so much. You want to take another 30 seconds? Any closing remarks? And again, I'm already publicly saying that I got to get you back on my show, Goodfoot, this either in July, August, or September. But any
You
kind
let
of
me know, and
excellent.
I'll try to make it happen. Just know that I will be out traveling a lot over the summer, but I will be around though. So if you let me know, definitely I will come on down to New Haven and we can talk.
Excellent.
But only thing I can say is that I just want people to understand this is a moment not of despair. This is a moment of possibilities.
Mm.
The terrain is shifting because the people have decided, especially young people, and before them, the Palestinians, before them, others around the world have decided that they can no longer tolerate the way the world is
Mm.
and the way the world is taking them out. This is a possibility moment, and I'm very hopeful. Uh, I'm not a pessimistic person, maybe of the intellect, but not of the will, right? And I'm not a cynic. So I know that we created this quagmire that we're in, and that we will find a way out of it, and that uh, we will survive, and we will continue to advance as a species, hopefully.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Dr. Johnny Williams, thank you, man. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
As I got another rhyme, another rhythm for y'all to listen. I'm never quitting on my mission. I'ma roll with what I'm giving. Got some ambition, this new edition, filling positions. Looking at the void in myself and feeling what's missing. Better watch the way you going, better go in the right direction. In the moment you stressing, but you gon' be counting blessings. And I know that for certain. Keep on working, open curtains, haters swerving, cause they ain't ready for your final version. Whoa. I'm never gonna give up, fall down, I just gotta get up, yeah.
You're listening to the Tom Ficklin Show on WNHH LP 103.5 FM, your home for